And welcome to another episode of Life Changing Challengers. Hey, I hope you got your compasses out because we are going on a journey. Today's journey is all about John Diggs and his mind mapping ability. Now, what is mind mapping? I'm not going to tell you right now. I'm going to let him tell you. But we got John Diggs. He is a speaker. He's an author. He's a coach. He's just about everything you can possibly imagine. He had some wonderful success. Tells you he owes it all to mind mapping. And we're going to get more into that. First, John, how's it going, buddy?
Hey, Brad. Thanks for having me, man. I'm excited to be here and have a conversation with you and hopefully share some useful and valuable information with you and your audience.
Can you tell us a little bit about your childhood? Maybe, what was the complement of your family? Where did you grow up? And what was it like to be John as a kid?
That's a great question. I was born and raised in Los Angeles, California, specifically Pacoima, California, which is about 20 minutes north of downtown Los Angeles in the San Fernando Valley. My parents were super young when they had me, 18 years old. It seems like, that was just the mindset back in the late 60s to have a bunch of kids when you're super young like that. And I think due to the fact of the youth and the challenges they were having, their marriage didn't last but a couple years. So my parents divorced when I was 2 years old. And primary reason for that, my mom was a part of a singing group with her 5 brothers and 2 sisters. And they were pretty good. It was actually Barry White's band. Godly, from 2 years old to like 6 years old, there were times where I saw my mom maybe a month or 2 out of every year. So that was an interesting dynamic. But, every time they came back, it was just a beautiful thing. And as a kid, I was in a neighborhood with a bunch of other kids back then. And this was before social media and internet and all these cable channels. So we stayed outside, and most of us, including myself, fell madly in love with football. We played football all day, every day in the streets until the street lights came on, and, hopefully afterwards before we had to go inside. But, fortunately that passion, earned me a scholarship to Washington State University, where I played some football there and got a chance to play several years of professional football. Yeah.
What, for Seattle?
No, not Seattle. I went to Washington State University. Go Cougs. But, I played in the NFL with the Houston Oilers, the LA Raiders, then 3 years up in Canada, actually, with Edmonton Eskimos and the Sacramento Gold Miners before I got 2 screws put in my right knee, which is funny because the doctor said that I can go back and play, but if I twisted it or took another shot in it, I would probably have to walk with a cane the rest of my life. So I took that as a hint and a half to parlay into something that I was already doing anyway, which was real estate. That was one of the smartest decisions that I made. Is before I played a down in professional football, I actually got my California real estate license. And true story, when I was last couple of years, when the Raiders were in Los Angeles, I played for them, and I had, even though I was on the team, I had like 6 and 7 listings. I was busy back then. So I kind of knew what I was going to do when football ended. So when I got that industry, that's when I just dove head first into the real estate industry, specifically the mortgage industry.
Yeah, let's step back just a little bit, because first of all, I'm infatuated with Barry White. So that just kind of like got me. And I'm like, man, seriously saying bad is, I love that. And that your mom was successful. And that's, with her being gone as much, it's not a surprise that there was some issues with the marriage. I feel bad for you because a broken home is not all that great to be around anyway. But did you have brothers?
I didn't have brothers and sisters, but I had a ton of cousins. With 9 people on my mom's side and 9 siblings on my side. Wow. We had tons of cousins that, despite my mom being gone and my dad wasn't really present at those times, I did receive a lot of love. We didn't have much as far as when it comes to economics or finances. There was a lot of love. I have no regrets or negative thoughts about my childhood, despite the things I just shared. I was one of those happy kids, and I didn't take much for me to be happy. All I needed was a 25-cent soda and probably some lemonade. I was happy as...
I hear you. Hey, listen, I was an only child as well.
Yep.
We also did not have a lot. My dad, like yourself, was an entrepreneur. Mm-hmm. So later on in life, when I finally got to high school, things got better.
Yep.
But we were still middle class, that type of thing. So able to be comfortable, but not like overly rich, not overly poor.
Right.
So I was kind of right there. I also had a ton of cousins, but my parents were always there. I was in a complete nuclear family. So that's where we differ. And I definitely wasn't very good at football, let alone any other sport. See, that drive that you got, so you're talking about playing, you just loved it. To get to the NFL, you have to have a certain amount of talent. There's only 1,500 people, only 1,500 players total. And that's in the third, fourth string. What do they call it?
Like the development league, you mean?
So they got between the development league, the NFL, there's only 1,500 players in there. I don't even think there was that many at that point. So you got to be driven. Where did you, without a father that was completely present for you, and a mom that was in and out all the time, where did you think you got that drive from?
Drive is a good word, but probably more fitting, and what resonates with me more is just love. I truly love just the game, and that was our neighborhood. By the way, Pacoima, California, back in the 60s and 70s, they put all of these plants, these GM, Lockheed, businesses was growing, and they migrated families from all over the country, and all African-American families, they pretty much put in this little city called Pacoima, right? And this city, there's actually a book on the greatness of my city that I grew up in, because we have Heisman Trophy winners. We have a member of Earth, Wind, and Fire coming from our city. The list goes on with all of the incredible, from senators to mayors. Mayor Bradley of Los Angeles was from our city. I mean, there's so many notable people that actually came out of our city. Cuba Gooden.
Gooding Jr.?
Yeah, Cuba Gooden Jr. Even today, what's those guys? With those three brothers that play. Drew Holiday, his mother is from our city. Paul George's mother is from our city. These basketball players. So it's like, and the reason I'm saying that to you is that our city was so dynamic in a lot of ways. And we had block parties and football games against various streets and stuff like that. I don't know if it was drive. It was just the love to play the game. We would play nonstop, even in youth sports. The little kids had their early games like at 9, 10 in the morning. Then right after that, there'll be all of us playing in the back of the end zone for the rest of the day. But it was just a passion that I really just loved the game itself. But then in high school, and I haven't thought about this in a while, right? But in high school, I was really, I was a good player, but I was not known as one of the greatest players in my neighborhood or in my city. They were guys that were just, phenomenal, gifted, born people to play the game. I just happened to be one of the lucky ones that made it out. If most of us, we didn't raised in a household where education was promoted. And we didn't come from households where there were good role models and leaders and mentors to help us make good decisions and stuff of that nature. When I was in high school, that's when crack cocaine was festering all of our communities. A lot of the gifted, there's some guys that would have been gold medalists, more than what we had. We do have a couple of gold medalists that came out of Pacoima as well, but we would have more dynamic, life-changing in the world of sports and other things had it not been for just that environment back then. We had really shaky environments. Then when the powers that be allowed this cocaine to come into the neighborhood, that just really destroyed a lot of things. And I was just, all I can really say honestly is that I was one of the lucky few that actually made it out of that area, of that community at that time. And I used to wear that on my sleeve, all through at Washington State. I knew that how lucky I was just to make it on that level. So I really took it upon myself to represent, all of those people that I knew that didn't have this opportunity like I had. And it was more of a prideful thing.
Right.
Going back home, the guys knew that he made it out of this craziness that it was really big in the mid 80s, early 90s. A lot of my friends were murdered and killed or put in jail and all of that kind of craziness when that crack infestation happened in our neighborhood. I have to say that it was a love for the game, a passion. Then it became more of a prideful kind of thing for me. Like, wait a minute,
got an opportunity. I'm going to make the most of it.
I have to represent not just myself, but all of those folks that I know that are very prideful.
Yeah. So would you say that were you also a good student?
I was decent. What saved me is that I had a girlfriend, a biracial girlfriend, and I used to stay at her house a lot in high school. And my white mother was like, look, if you're going to hang out over here, you can't come in with D's and C's. So I love my girlfriend so much that I had to study when she studied and all of that. And it was actually her, Miss Donis Bailey. I will always thank her for that. She's the one that dropped the seed in my mind that the word college. As a kid, I never even, that's whatever. But she got me to think about that. And that was ultimately where I really started to laser focus and distance myself from certain people in certain situations, certain neighborhoods, certain streets I didn't go down, because I knew that that's what I wanted to do to please my girlfriend, if you will, at the time. I was just blessed in so many ways, to do what I did and live the life that I lived back in those days. He's my really, truly best friend. He got caught, I think it was in Tennessee with some cocaine or something, and they put him in jail for 9 years. 9 years of his life. He wasn't a criminal. He wasn't a murderer. He was just caught up in that whirlwind of trying to make money, and 9 years of his life was gone.
Imagine having, people around you being stuck in jail and die. Oh my God, I can't even imagine. So as much as I really, really want to dig into your freaking NFL career, but let's get to let's go a little bit forward than that. So you get to Edmonton. Unfortunately, you end up with issues with your knee, and you decide, all right, hey, listen, somebody's telling me that I think I'm done here and I need to move. Yep. I need to move back. Did you end up going back to LA?
Went back to LA and began my mortgage career. I dove, real estate was just something, but when I really sat back and looked at the industry itself, just like looking at the football itself, I realized I was more of an offensive player than a defensive player, if you will. So I got all into mortgages, and about 8 years of navigating all of that and learning everything I could about the mortgage industry by going from company to company and having mentors and those things. I eventually ended up opening my own company in 2003.
Wow.
And went on to build the largest mortgage brokerages in Southern California, at that time.
I will tell you a little story. I will give you a guess, considering of what we're talking about and the fact. Can you guess one of the things, how I earned my money going through college?
I say what? Cold calling?
Real estate
appraisals. Nice.
Yeah. Well, you made your own hours.
Yeah.
You made your own hours. So it's like, all right, you get reports, you call, you say, hey, can I come over at this time, which is in between classers?
Yeah.
Went over there and went to and that, at the time there was no internet. So then you had to go to a real estate office, get comps, go back, take pictures of the comps.
A lot of legwork.
And then go home and write it up. Yeah. But it was a cool job. And I thank my dad for it, because my dad was in it. And while I was home for the summer, one summer, he was like, do you want to make some money? We've got so many, because obviously the rates had gone down and they were just flooded. And they're like, I'll teach you how to do it. And he was doing it. And he's like, when I went to school, and I was like, all right, well, I can come home on the weekends. I can do a few there. I can do a few at school. I get, what I mean? It was cool. So I understand the mortgage. The mortgage industry. My dad also opened his own appraisal firm and did mortgages on the back end. Titles. He did titles.
Okay, got it.
But that's amazing that you built the biggest mortgage brokerage in Southern California.
Yeah, and one of the things that helped me do that was not just the knowledge and the mentors. I had some of the most awesome mentors. One of my dearest friends, even to this day, Mr. Paul Wiley. He owned Metro Cities Mortgage back in the late 90s and 2000s. And his private company was doing loans all over the country. And he was doing more loans than Bank of America, Washington Mutual. I mean, he was crushing it. And he gave me a lot of insight on how to run a business. But what really set me apart, Brad, was that I became this tech dude in the late 90s. I got fascinated with this software called ACT. It was a contact database management.
I know it well.
Yeah. And I fell in love with it and then put down the PlayStation and started messing around with this software and got fascinated with it so much so that I had it integrated with like 6 or 7 different softwares that I found. And we're looking at 2002, 2003. And I actually had it proactively sending out emails like Constant Contact and MailChimp. I was doing that like in 2002 before anybody even knew anything about this kind of process. So I was going to real estate agents and transactions. I was like, hey, what do you think about this kind of proactive communications to your clients before, during, and after the transaction? Oh, that's awesome. Is your current loan officer doing anything like that? No, well, you like to work with me and I can send this same kind of system out to your database so we can get more referrals and things of that nature from your clients. And back in those days, people were so unaware of things that they would literally give me their whole database. I mean, all their emails, all their contacts, everything. And then so I can put it in my system and we could do these joint marketing campaigns. But yeah, I was crushing back then. And I was making more money at my mortgage company twofold, more than I ever did as a professional football player. I mean, I was crushing. Wow. Yet it was crazy. I mean, the millionaire lifestyle for real, with big homes and cars and being young and silly and stupid. I used to do crazy things like go in there and grab my loan officers, whoever's in the office at the time, be like, let's go to lunch. And they would think we were going down the street, but I'll take them to the little local airport and we actually take a helicopter ride to Long Beach just for lunch and fly back. I mean, I was silly, didn't know,
You thought it was going to last forever.
And back then, from 2002 to the mortgage meltdown, the mortgage meltdown actually started in 2007, in March 2007, but the recession hit the year later, like in 2008. But yeah, I was having $80, $90, $100,000 months. It was crazy back then. And so I was just like throwing money away. But then the mortgage meltdown hit, like I said, and literally within 6-7 months, I lost every single thing I had. Business, savings, homes, cars, even my wife and kids. I lost everything, which begins that TED Talk, story where I talk about that. I was really just the psychological experience of, former football player, great mortgage businessman, to getting declined jobs at Target. I remember submitting an application to Target and Target said, no, you're overqualified. I was like, if I'm submitting a damn application, I need the job. But it was tough. So I was forced to move back to my mother's house.
With all this going on, was it just poor planning? Was it that you were over leveraged? How did that happen? I get that the mortgage, that you're the input dried up.
Yeah, see, what happened is business owners like me, right? When the mortgage meltdown hit, I remember calling one of my wholesale reps that had a bunch of my loans that I've been doing business with for years. And I just called him, hey, we got those loans funding, which is probably around $30,000, $40,000 worth of loans that was supposed to close just that day. In my company, I had 18 loan officers, 3 processors, 2 receptionists. I had a pretty nice sized company. And he called me about an hour later and said, when I got to the office, my manager and boss told us to get on this call where they had everybody in the country on this call. And the owner, president of the company said, effective immediately, we are no longer in business. And I was like, but what about my loans? I got loans that people that are buying homes that are expecting to move in these houses this week. I got people that are refinancing, trying to get cash out and all of this. What about all that? John, we are no longer in business. I went over there. I remember I had like 6 big duffel bags and 3 of my loan officers. We went to that company before electronics. They tackled legal folks, all the big duffel bags and shot them to another company. And, a week later, that company said the same thing. We're no longer in business. Then all of a sudden it just started happening all like this. And next thing you know, I got $40,000 a month in expenses and payroll and things of that nature. And guys like me were holding on, thinking that, they can't do this. This would be catastrophic. They can't do this. So let's just hold on another month. Meantime, that $40,000, $50,000 is coming out of my savings, after 8 months of that, 9 months, of that, I'm like having to let people go. And it was just a bad deal when having that kind of expenses and making, maybe a fraction of what I used to. So it was really bad, so much so that they had the sheriff lock my door on my office, and I had to wholesale all of the furniture that I had in my office, let friends go. I had one of those community companies where, my friend that I just told you about, actually, that went to jail for 9 years, he got out of jail when I had my company, and I brought him over and had him start doing some telemarketing for him, to help him get feet and things. So I had a big family business, and it was just hard to deal with my family members as this was imploding. That's how it essentially happened. And I know some guys that actually killed themselves because of the pressure of where life was going, having had all of this luxurious abundance for so many years, and all of a sudden that just taken away from them. And that thought of being homeless and in poverty. And by the way, another big thing is that most of all my career and resume was all in the mortgage industry.
Right.
But the mortgage industry was gone. Do you know what I mean? So it wasn't like I had skill set to just parlay into something else, it was bad times.
I hear you. I got very lucky. So my day job is tech. I'm in IT. And I happened to be working for JP Morgan at that time. And my contracting company that I was working for contracted me to JP Morgan for a couple of projects that I was working. They told me, they're like, hey, we have to take 20% of your salary. If you want to keep working there, then we need to drop 20%. And I was like, whoa, I can't afford that. So I finagled something where I only had to take 10%, and I got hired. It was one of the very few times in a contracting company that I ever got hired by an individual company. So JP Morgan was like, well, we don't want to lose you. And I said, well, I can't afford this. And they met me halfway, and they hired me on. So not only that, I was able to at least obscure the pain a little bit. And then obviously, part of that was that they were working their mortgages, and they were doing loan modifications and doing everything possible to get people on there and keep people in the mortgage business. So that was that, but it was tough, man. I tell you, my dad was in the middle of having an appraisal business and the whole bit. So he was having issues. It was a rough time.
It was bad.
So you got through all of this. You ended up back at your parents. You were married. And you had
I had 3. I just had a new. My youngest daughter was born during all of this stuff.
Oh, wow.
Which made it even more complex. And I didn't really have a great connected friendship, partnership like marriage. It was tumultuous. We had our ups and downs. We broke up a lot. It was a lot of issues that was going on with her and her mother and all of that stuff, which is kind of a story for another. Then finances, I was able to mask all of those challenges because of the money I made. We had a bunch of distractions. We'll go to Vegas, go to Hawaii, travel, and we weren't really dealing with that. But when the money tightened up and we had to really just kind of look one-on-one to each other, that was just too much for us to break. So she actually took my kids, which even made it worse. She took my kids, which I thought she was just moving to Pasadena, which was only like 25 minutes from my mother's. But she ended up moving to her mother's house in Cottonwood, Arizona, which was like a 7-hour drive away in a whole nother state. Didn't tell me. It was just that, so that was another layer on all of this. Now I lost my girls. You know what I mean? What I'm saying is that it was moving into my mom's, and there was one, and I think this is valuable, is that there was a story. It was April 27th, 2009. I'll never forget the date. We just got evicted out of our apartment. Couldn't afford it. It was crazy. And I had to go get the last stuff out of there. And going over there is when I got the call from my oldest daughter talking about they was going to Arizona. So I'm just like real fused and hurt and disappointed at my life. And remember walking in, I had this box, and I walked into my 2 youngest daughters' bedroom. It was now empty. You could see bare walls and indents of where their bed was on the carpet and all that stuff, man. And it just hit me hard. It was like a Mike Tyson body blow. I dropped the box and just fell to the ground and just cried that whole night. But then the next morning, again, by the grace of God, it's like I woke up like this new dude. It's like that old me had died. my soul was scrubbed, if you will, or whatever it was. And, I just woke up this new dude, like, all right, I survived death. It can't get much lower than this. It's this on and upward at this point. So let me figure out what I need to do to rebuild my life. I went back to my mother's house with a gym bag that had my workout clothes. I took my mountain bike with me, and I just took this big ass box that was just full of all of the motivational DVDs, books, tapes, cassette tapes, CDs, everything I've accumulated over the years. I knew I had to revisit that box to help get my mind right and rebuild myself, because I was always into self-development by way of my mentors. I learned NLP a long time ago and took all these landmark education courses, but I knew I had to go back and revisit that self to really reset myself. So that's why I took that big ass box to my mom's house.
Yeah, and the TEDx talk it's ridiculously inspiring, motivational, inspiring. It's amazing. So here you are, you basically have nowhere to go but up, and you're in your mom's house, and you're spending this time like going through all of your development books again. Thing for money at this point,
I think I might have been on unemployment, like just getting like $200 a week or whatever it was at that time. I had to fill out unemployment and things of that nature. So I had, it was definitely not an abundant situation at all. Good thing my mom was there. She was taking care of me and help me, with a lot of that stuff. But yeah.
Was she still singing at the time?
My mom stopped singing back when, early 80s, late 70s. A lot of those drug stories that I mentioned destroyed the family, and poor decision, poor leadership, poor education, and all of that kind of stuff destroyed that family, destroyed the family group, when I was maybe 10. But no, she was actually one of the head driving instructors for LA Unified School District, where she taught people how to drive buses. Even though my mom is every bit of 5 feet, her little butt was wheeling these big old buses.
By far, some of the best bus drivers I ever had were all under 5 feet. A little short. I don't know how they did it. I must be something about extra, compensation.
Yeah. Good thing I had her. She was helping me out a lot and during those times. When you mentioned me going through that box, as I started kind of opening that big ass box and peeling through what was going on, that one book, it was called the Mind Map book by Tony Buzan. I don't remember ever buying it. I think someone must have given it to me and I never read it, but for whatever reason, it resonated with me at this point. So I read it and it intrigued me, and I only made one of the most powerful decisions I ever made in my life. And I decided to mind map the contents of all of the stuff that was in that box. So for 3.5, 4 months, all day, every day, I was mind mapping those books. I mean, I would grab Think and Grow Rich, and I would go through it and read it and just extract keywords and put it on a mind map. I grab a book, mind map that book, toss the book, grab another, mind map that book. And I probably did anywhere from 30 to 35 different books, Unlimited Power, How to Win Friends and Influence People. I mean, all of the top motivational books. I really just brainstormed and developed mind maps around that. And it started becoming so intriguing and fascinating with me that it was like, I was looking forward to doing it all day, every day, because I didn't know at the time what mind mapping was, but I knew it was something about this process that was different than anything I've done before. So I just started really digging into it. And I think it's probably good for me to say that after that time, about 3 months or so went by, and I felt I had a good, strong handle. I really walked away with 2 powerful distinctions from those 3 months of mind mapping those books. And the first one is that all of those thought leaders, the Tony Robbins, Dale Carnegie, Eckhart Tolle's, the Les Browns, I mean, anybody you can think of, all of them, I realized it rang true to me that all of them was basically saying one thing, which is another power of mind map, is that when you can step back, you can see connections to things that you don't normally see. And what they were all saying was, life is meant to be loved. that is the purpose of life, is just to love it. And they all have their different philosophies and strategies and mindsets and systems and all of that stuff on how to do it. But that's really what all they were talking about is, hey, if you do this, you'll live and love your life as best as possible. Even I was really understanding that that's what the prophets were saying. Jesus, Muhammad, Buddha, Gandhi, all of them were all talking about, hey, life is meant to be loved. And here's how you do it according to. And so I really took that to heart, like, wow, that is truly, I got to love my life. But then the second distinction that I took from that, Brad, is that from all of those guys, is that to truly love and live my best life, I have to first get clear on who I am and what love and life means to me. Not what it meant to my dad, not what it meant to society, not the norms, but truly go inside myself to have a conversation with myself, an honest, forthright, authentic conversation with myself and God on what is my life going to be about? Who do I need to be doing, have all of the stuff that I'm defining to love and live my best life. And that began what is now known as my I am mind map, because I just took a poster board and I put I am in the center. And I just started asking myself point blank, who the hell are you? What's really most important?
Absolutely. And I'm going to let everybody see the TEDx where you basically called out, at the time you weren't there, but you made it yourself. You self-actualized into these components. We'll call them a component: healthy, wealthy, successful. And you basically, I don't want to call it manifesting, but it's kind of owning what you want. And that's what I always say: live like you already live, like you want to be living. So, all right. That's great. And that's fantastic. But there's obviously a difference between theory, hypothesis, and realization. So let's let from here, there's the TEDx talk, and that will be in the show notes. But let's say you've got my map, you figured out how all the connections are made. Mm-hmm. What did you do at that point, physically, hard stuff, to dig yourself out?
Yeah, that process caused me to shift my way of being. When I got clear on what I started vibrating differently. I started believing things were possible that I didn't believe before. I started to realize things that I couldn't see before. And I know just by me vibrating in a different place of living in intention, as you mentioned, or living on purpose, that I started attracting different people, different experiences, different opportunities. And after 4 months of going through and really getting clear on who I am and what I wanted to do with my life, one of my loan officers that I had in my company went to another company, and that company had just purchased this software called Encompass. They didn't know how to install it. They just bought it knowing that it was something that they needed to install. And that loan officer told them that, hey, my former boss, he is a computer whiz. We did everything on his computer system. You might want to talk to him. And I talked to that guy. I needed a job, and I went in there and commanded $12,000 a month to do it. And I believe that clarity that I had, that congruency that I had about who I am and how I'm living, that when he asked me how much it was going to take, instead of leaning back in doubt or insecurity, I leaned forward with all confidence, and he was like, deal. And that was so from being homeless with my mom, rags to riches, really.
Yeah.
8 months later, I landed this 6-figure gig that immediately transformed my life. And I know absolutely it was just because of that clarity, that mind mapping helped me sort of crap that I was dealing with, organize it in such a way that it became a roadmap on how to actually get my life back on track sooner rather than later. And from there, I built one of the top mortgage software development companies. All the way up from 2010 to 2020. I became one of the top software developers of this platform, because by the grace of God, again, this Encompass platform became one of the top platforms in the entire mortgage industry, where I think 80% of all mortgage banks throughout the entire US is using this platform now. So I was on it right when they just released it. So I became one of their experts before the country even knew about it. So a lot of people would buy it, pay $100,000 for it, but then they would have to hire someone like me to come in and actually implement it and install it in their system. So by me having a mortgage background, being a loan officer, being, a mortgage owner, and now having all this computer experience of the software, that really kind of set me apart from all of the other people that were trying to do it back in those days, where I was from 2010, I would say probably to like 2016, 2017, I was one of the top guys in the entire country for this platform. And that enabled me to not just transform my life, mentally and physically, but financially, I was having some very lucrative.
Yeah. So what's interesting about that, and we have something in common there, is I started in software when I was a kid. My dad had this signage firm, and he asked me to network his signage firm that he had that was commercial, like hospitals and stuff, the door panels, the emergency room this way, the lighted directories. And then he had a print press on the bottom, and he asked me to network it together. That was the start. And then when I got to the military, I did some things in Korea that made people turn their head. I never actually ever did my actual MLS. But when I walked to the Pentagon, the guy that nominated me for the position of the Pentagon, he said, "Hey, this guy's really, really good with computers and stuff." And so my sergeant major, he brought me into this room, and he goes, "I hear you're some kind of computer hotshot. Well, hotshot, come over here." So when I walked into the room, and he's got like 10 or 15 hot toppable compact servers and a ton of different workstations, and then the software and the operating system. And basically says, "All right, this is the Army's new human resources information system. This needs to get put into the E-ring at the Pentagon, because that's the Army system, the E-ring. And you need to get that in and put up there in a year. You got a year to get it done and figure it out. And okay, here you go." And I have questions. I'm like, "Well, what about this? And what about that?" He goes, "I don't know." He says, "Figure it out." So what I do now is project management. I do IT, project portfolio, program management. Usually for most of my career, if they've got a project, they come with me, they give me the resources, I do the project, and then I go to the next one. Recently, I've actually been hired for the first time as a full-time employee, but that's basically what I've always done. But I got that by my sergeant major saying, "Here it is." And me going, "Well, how the heck? All right, I know I got to learn it, but how do I organize this whole thing?"
Yep.
And that's when I found project management, and the rest is history. You had this guy come in and said, "Hey, my ex-boss knows about computers, whether it was more than one system or not. He knows enough that he could learn it, get it done, get it for you." And you walked in with this combo, and I said, "Bam. All right." And then you can sped up from there, which I think is phenomenal. But all of this started with this I am mind map.
Totally. It's powerful.
And I imagine once you got to this first company, you sat down with the boss and said, "Well, what do you want?" And then you mind map that. Where this goes, everything goes, and then you're able to just execute from there.
I started using mind maps every day from 2010. I would do something or have a decision to make or something that I need to brainstorm. I didn't even think about the word mind map. It just became a part of my just daily go-to kind of dealings on how I organized and structured my thoughts. When COVID hit in 2020 and we were quarantined, that's when I said, now is a great time for me to start writing some books and sharing this message about this tool called mind mapping with the world, and I found out that the godfather of mind mapping, Tony Buzan, he passed away in 2018, and I was just like, you know what, this would be something. I've always, I think as a kid, kind of saw myself as some kind of motivational speaker guy. I've always had people that kind of looked up to me and, would kind of lean on me for advice, and I always used to love to talk and perform and speak in front of people, from high school to all the way through college. So I kind of knew that at some point I would hope to get into that childhood passion of being an orator kind of deal, I guess. So I started moving down that path. And, since then, like you mentioned, I did a TEDx. I wrote 10 books on mind mapping and actually became an international best-selling author last year. And now I'm just like, I really believe that all of the things that I've done in my life, that this now I'm now in true alignment with my calling. The football was just the fun thing. Mortgages was just something to pay bills. The software business was just something to give me the lifestyle that I wanted to live. But this, being a mapineering mentor,
I love that.
it's
Mapineering, that is the shiznit right there.
I came up with the word mapineering because, those people that have heard of mind mapping or use mind mapping, they primarily use it for three purposes. Most Fortune 500 companies mind map. A lot of Ivy League schools teach mind map, but they primarily use it for note taking, brainstorming, and like project planning.
Yeah, we use it all the time.
What I found though, Brad, since 2010 of being truly involved in this mind mapping community around the world is that I am the only one that's really teaching it, promoting it, training it as a personal development tool to how to use it personally for problem solving, decision making. So I kind of wanted to come up with a name for my style. And that's where I came up with mapineering, engineering beautiful mind maps to love your life more. And that's where the distinction between mind mapping and mapineering lies.
No, I love it. I absolutely love it. So you talk about engineering. It's really cool because of the whole thing. Orienteering, it turns into mapineering. I love it. I think it's fantastic. So find your journey, find your path.
Yep.
Which turns into, and you start with mind mapping, mapineering. It's perfect. Absolutely perfect. I love it. I am totally amazed by what you've done and where you've come from. I know people that like the mortgage crisis caused so much havoc. I went through some issues myself, not nearly to the point that you did, but I completely understand that the motivation you have, the inspiration is second to none. And I appreciate that you're able to come on to Life Changing Challengers and share your story. For those of you at johndiggs.com, JOHNDIGGS.com, John has booked I Am the Power of Knowing Who You Are, Big Player Power, an inside race guide to making big plays on and off the field, mapineering your college years. He's got it for the younger kids too. Blessed and grateful, embracing life's blessings with gratitude. Love life, which is his biggest message, is loving the life you're in, embracing your journey to fulfillment and joy. And my favorite title, because it'll go back to his TED Talk, so you got to listen to his TED Talk, is What's in Your Big X Box?
Yep.
Absolutely the coolest titles, the coolest names, and the most inspiration that you're probably going to get in any of these books. So you know what? I'm going to tell you right now, I am going to put every single one of those books, a link inside the show notes, the link to his homepage. All of that's going to be in there. The question that you all should be asking yourselves after you read the book and you get to the last one, which is what's in your big ass box, should be I Am Mastering Clarity, Focus, and Purpose, Big Player Power, Mapineering Your College Years, Blessed and Grateful, Love Life. What's in your big ass box? That should be in your big ass box. What do you have coming up on the horizon?
Wow, this has been an amazing year for me. My I Am project has been going great as I've been speaking at colleges. I just got off of leading a webinar for the Michigan Mental Health Wellness Association. I got to my Big Play Power book is where it really starts to take off now, because that's the book that I wrote strictly for student athletes to show them how to use a mind map to get clear on the perfect play they can make, the perfect game they can have, the perfect season they can have, the perfect career they can have. Let's map all of those details out so you can start visualizing yourself experiencing those things before they actually occur, kind of future pacing, if you will, to get really clear on what is your biggest play that you can ever make. Most athletes never really thought about it. Like I'm speaking at Washington State University, my alma mater, in 2 weeks. I'll be speaking at Arizona State University, which I have a nephew there, Elijah O'Neal, who's his senior year, and I've been working with him, really anticipating him having a breakout year and becoming a first-round draft pick, because I've been working with him as far as really mapping out what he wants from the game. Because what I've been finding is that when athletes, or anyone for that matter, use a mind map to crystallize what it is they want, when it comes time to meditate, visualize, or imagine it, it's easier for people to see the mind map. all of that structure, which helps it become more real, which helps it, if you're a law of attraction kind of person, this is what the secret is about, is to really start to imagine yourself already experiencing that which you want. And so I use that for Big Play Power, strictly for student athletes, and Mapping Your College Years is starting to really take off for me again. I'm speaking at various colleges around here, Mesa Community College, to show students how to map out their college journey. Just don't come in as a freshman,
Right.
Without no self-awareness. And now you're getting pulled and tugged with all of these peer pressure things that happen in college that you may end up regretting or having some guilt in the future. Get clear on who you are now and what you want your college experience to be like, so you can properly set yourself up for after college. Is all what Mapping Your College Years is about. And I think it's important for me, real quick, just to note about the What's in Your Big Ass Box book. After I did the TEDx talk, which I had a big ass box on there, I realized that people may not physically have a big ass box like I had that needs sorting out, but they do have a big ass brain that needs some sorting out, just kind of like how I did my box. And that book is really getting people to realize, when people ask you to think outside the box, what they're really asking you to do is to think outside of your current belief systems.
Right.
Be open to new possibilities. And a mind map is a perfect tool to get people to think outside of their normal thought processing. Just by the structure, visual nature of a map, you start thinking outside of the box. That's what a mind map is perfect for. But then when you start developing a mapineering practice and exercise, you move from just thinking outside of the box to living outside of the box, to where you start to really resonate with that anything and everything truly is possible. There's nothing fixed. From your thoughts to your emotions to your circumstances, anything is possible. You can change in a flash if you want to. And that's where the power lies, is when you're living outside of those limiting beliefs, which are essentially the edges or the walls of the box. So that's really the intent of Big Ass Box, is to get people to realize, wait a minute, life is truly loved outside the box.
Exactly.
A lot of people suffer living inside of a small box. That's where most of our suffering comes from, is that we only can think inside of this small box and don't think that there's possibilities to change their whole circumstances. I'm here to tell you folks, anything is possible. We believe it to be true.
Yes, that is my biggest message. Do something that's way out of your comfort zone. Even if it's not something that maybe is a career builder, or even something that you're majorly passionate about. Like, find that one thing that you're like, wow, that is really cool. I would like to accomplish that. Let me challenge just once. I talk about doing an Ironman, doing a marathon, climbing Mount Kilimanjaro to Everest, whatever. But it's that one thing that you build for that's outside of your realm of family, your career and all that, something that's outside, that's just for you. Just that transposes itself. So for instance, I remember after my first Ironman, it was like, and any obstacle that came by, I'm like, wait a second. You're crazy. I freaking swam 2.4 miles. Then I got on a bike and biked for 112. And then I did a marathon. What can't I do? What cannot I do? Now I know the only thing that is limiting me is my head, because I did all of this.
You can do it.
Exactly. And I think the greatest way to get out of your head and figure out where you want to go is mind mapping.
It is. If you stare, and for those who don't know what a mind map is, it's just taking a blank piece of paper and start with a central topic in the center, whatever that may be. Ironman, whatever you want to put in the center. I want to be an actor. I want to make a trip. I want to resolve a problem. I want to make a decision. Whatever it is you're thinking about, just start with a little circle in the center of a paper that's a landscape, and just start letting it flow. Any of your ideas that come out of your mind that relates to that, just start putting it on that page.
Yeah.
Then you want to leak it all to the center, but then everything you put on the page, but now you start asking these questions about all of those things you put in the page. Why is this important? Why did I put it in the page? Do I really like it? Is it really important? I'm using the right word right here. And as you start to go through down this rabbit hole, if you will, and start building your mind map, all of a sudden it starts expanding, and That's the power of mind map. Because and I do this all the time with folks. I have this map exercise called the 5 W's and H that I put people for: the who, what, when, where, and how. So I have a person, especially with like problems. You can put problem, whatever you want to title that problem to be in the center. It put who, what, where, when, why, and how. And now you start asking your questions like, who's involved with this problem? Who shouldn't be involved with this problem? Who can help me with this problem? Every who question you can think of, put it on your map. Then go to what's happening? What's going on? Then you go to where? Then you go to when? Then you go to why? Then you go to how, asking yourself some true thought-provoking questions as it relates to who, what, where, when, and why of that problem. You do that on a mind map, always the best solutions to that problem reveals itself, because now you actually have a visual tool to see all of the components of the problem that you would have never saw if it was just stuck here.
Exactly.
And I do this all the time, Brad, with folks. And I mean, they'll come to me all stressed out because the problem is swirling all in here. And I just walk them through this exercise, and you can see their whole energy shift, because now the problem is not inside. They're now looking at the problem like a third person now. And now they're more calm and more open. And now they can see all of the key components of the problem. And now it's like they know the decision they have to make, and they can make it with confidence now because they've seen everything around it, versus trying to solve a problem when it's just swirling chaotically in your head. That's just one exercise that I teach people with problems in the center, from decisions, goals, anything. This 5 W's and H, I've seen it transform people. And you can use a napkin, folks. You don't need no fancy, smancy mind map software like I use. You can grab a napkin and a crayon if you're dealing with a problem and just map it out like that. Guarantee you will get greater perspective of what you're facing than you ever had before, to rest assured with confidence that you are making the right next best step to address or to move forward with whatever you're dealing with. It's truly powerful.
I could not, you heard it right here, folks. John has completely laid out mind mapping for you, and you can get more details at johndiggs.com and grab some of those books and start reading, because I'm telling you, you're just absolutely going to be inspired and motivated. First thing you got to do is go down to the show notes and click on his TEDx. Start there. Listen to the whole thing, right? A lot of it is going to be repetitive because he's said a lot of it. And then after you see that, there's no way you're not going to go visit johndiggs.com and start picking up some of those books, and all of those books are going to be linked right there as well. So make sure you get all those and start with one and work your way, because it's going to blow your mind. And any issues that you've got using mind mapping, you're in the very least, you're going to have more of an understanding of it and what you need to do to solve it. So
Exactly.
John,
I'm here to help. Anybody needs it, I'm here to help. And with Brad, I'm always here for you, brother. You know,
I appreciate that.
I appreciate you more than you know. I thank you for having me. I thank you for allowing me to share this passionate message that I have with you and your audience, and know that I'm always here for you if you need anything, brother. I love you, man. I appreciate you. Thank you.
Okay, so all that stuff's going to be in the show notes. If you're watching on YouTube, please go ahead and like that, subscribe, and the notification bell, so you always know when we're dropping an episode. If you're watching on Spotify, you can watch the show, or listening on Spotify, you're listening on Apple, please go ahead and leave us a review. Any feedback I get will just help me evolve the podcast to help more people. And that's what I'm here to do. I don't get paid for this, folks. This is strictly a labor of love. I love talking to people like John and like all the other episodes that we've got. So check those out if you want. But like I said, leave us a review. I don't even care if that's a good review. But for John, thank you. Thank you. Thank you. We will see you in the next one. And thanks for listening.
Okay, folks.